because I had StreamYard for a while, I would recommend Restream.
Mm-hmm.
It's a similar setup. They have a dark mode, and I believe you can stream to more places at the same time.
I'm Will, and I love wrestling. Hey, everybody. We're live.
Word.
And I do love wrestling. You know what else I love? The city of Chicago. Because, I don't know. I definitely know that it is such a home of great wrestling history and wrestling memories. And I've only gotten to make a few there because I've only been to Chicago one time. It was for pro wrestling, and it was actually for All Out. But in just a matter of hours, I will be headed to the city of Chicago. Hey there, folks. Welcome to Wrestling with Weekends. I am William R. Washington, and I am not alone here. Hey, yeah, you can point at me. You got to go. Sorry.
Yeah, the opposite. I've been struggling with it on my show forever. When I have guests, I'm always doing the wrong way. So I've had practice.
Yeah. All right. There we go. So I got to point that way, even though I see you that way.
Yeah, we can do a fusion high thing.
Yeah. Hold on. All right. Ready. So we go.
You got to point the other way.
Yeah.
That way.
Yes. There we go.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Yep. There he is. It's Rob. B. Rob. Random. I go into.
I know it's done like that on purpose.
Yeah, I know. Random Ramblings with Rob. The 3R show on Twitter.
And sometimes wrestling is trash.
Wrestling is trash, or as the Twitter handle is, wrestling be trash. I like that it was like one letter too short.
One letter.
And yeah, if you want to see video, we are over on you can see it on my Twitter, which is twitter.com/WilliamRBR, or we are also youtube.com/wrestling with Will. If you're just wanting to listen to audio, it's always mixler.com/fanoff. There's always ways to catch us talking about wrestling on a Saturday morning. If you want to see me in my Chicago AEW hat, though, you got to catch the video. I posted to Twitter that I couldn't find this hat, and because I got it 2 years ago at All Out, and really it was just because I wanted just a straight up AEW hat, but all they had left was the Chicago flag ones, and I thought to myself, I don't know if I'll be returning to Chicago for this, but it would be really cool if like CM Punk ever comes to AEW and at least have the hat. And like that was legitimately my line of thinking behind it. And then I lost it for like at least a year. I haven't seen it in a while. I couldn't think of the last time I wore it. And I mentioned that while me and the kids are headed to Chicago, my wife is headed to a cabin in the mountains just for a girls' getaway weekend. And so she was cleaning out her car. These two things were completely unrelated. I wasn't asking her to look for the hat, but she's like, hey, is this it? Sent me a picture. And I was like, yes. She was like, it was under the passenger seat of my car.
So a year and some change?
I guess. I have no idea how long that's been there, but it's been a long time.
How does a hat even... I mean, as a man of many hats, I got hats all over the place. I mean, how do you get your hat under the seat?
We must have gone somewhere. I think we maybe went like hiking one time. And I think just after we were done, I put the hat under the seat just
Come
to
on, man. You need a good hat on the hike anyway.
I know. I don't know what I did with it, but it was just like I must have put it under the seat so I didn't step on it because it would have obviously been in her car. So I like put it under the seat and then forgot about it. So it's been gone. But okay. I've been
I can get that now because you said it was in her car. Because I mean, you know, if you the man of your pristine stature, I would understand if it was in your car, you would have found it because I know you keep your shit clean.
Yeah. So I didn't have it. The thing is, like I said, it was her car. So it must have been one of the trips we made with her driving. But yeah. So thanks for joining us again on a Saturday morning. I always enjoy doing this. And this time I'm like way more ready to go than usual because I'm going to Chicago in just a little bit. The kids are almost ready. They're not like 100% certain on. I'm not letting them take everything. And
what's your grace period whenever y'all go on trips? Because I know you've been talking about taking them on a lot of different trips and everything. So like, if you got to be gone by 6, what time are you actually waking them up to get ready?
If we got to be gone by 6, then we got to be out by 3. So if let's say the flight leaves at 6, we have to be out of my house by 3:30. So, because I don't know, it's weird. Pre-pandemic, I would have said I could leave my house by 4:30 and be fine.
Yeah.
But that was TSA it's a completely different nightmare than it used to be.
Yeah. I'm here in Houston and I literally live less than 20 minutes away from the airport and I still leave 2 hours early.
Yeah. I used to be good. I only really had like that one bad experience traveling to WrestleMania in Dallas. But before that, I didn't have really like bad experiences at all. I was like, it was always good. Like an hour was great lead time. And the last few trips, I was like, something tells me to leave 2 hours or get there 2 hours early. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, because I only live like maybe 20 minutes from the airport, so there's a major street right outside my subdivision that's Buckley Road, which leads to Buckley Air Force Base. But then as it splits off to Buckley Air Force Base, it becomes Airport Boulevard. And if you just stay on it, it just takes you straight to the airport. So
I make 2 blocks right here and I'm on the interstate and just pew.
Yeah. So it's like I only have a 20-minute trek. So I don't have to think about it much. And I'm parking at the airport. I'm just going to pay what is 25 bucks.
I just went to SummerSlam in Vegas and it was just pretty much like everything was on time. I left an hour early. Then I got there, checked in, went through security surprisingly fast. And then that was it. I didn't have to do any extra shenanigans.
How was SummerSlam in Vegas?
Vegas itself was
hot, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, but it was a different kind of heat compared to Houston or whatever. I can tolerate that. I can be tank topped up and be like, all right, this is cool. Air is polluted there with the smells of marijuana, which is not a bad thing, which I thoroughly enjoyed since I can't imbibe. But it was nerve-wracking knowing that, the pandemic shit and all those people, just a sea of people just everywhere from, side to side. And it was just kind of like, fuck, so many people here.
Yeah. That's the thing is I'm like, I'm still a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've taken, this is going to be my 4th. Is it really my 4th? Mm-hmm. Yep. This will be my 4th AEW show this year. Mm-hmm. And so in essence is my 4th trip this year.
Yeah.
And I still have
my 2nd.
And I still got one more because I'm going to Arthur Ashe in New York. So that'll be 5 in 1 year, which I think is enough. I'm really just making up for lost time from 2020. Even though, how many shows did I go to in 2020 before the pandemic? I went to one. I went to one show in 2020 before the pandemic hit. And so I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just excited. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. So 2022 and 2023 is when I start to make my transition from, trying to attend a lot of WWE shows to make the move to AEW shows.
Nice.
Because I feel like as a fan right now with WWE it's kind of waning on me and whatnot because I don't watch Raw anymore.
It is amazing. Did you see the Reddit census they did on? No. It was really fascinating. So yeah, so they did the annual Reddit census, okay. Which I think obviously that's a unique sample of fans. It's not just it doesn't represent the entire wrestling base, but I feel like it's a good sample of at least like the internet wrestling community. And they were asked of their background, gender, pretty much their income. There's a lot of things to represent at least the base of wrestling fans that are on Reddit, and then what they watch. And it was amazing how, and then they compared it against last year's Reddit census, and the number of things that have changed. The biggest factor that had changed was Raw viewing habits, and how almost the majority of people in that community have basically decided Raw is not for them anymore. And I hate, I talk about that a lot, but that's because I hate that. I hate that I had to ultimately stop watching Raw. Sorry, my phone keeps vibrating, and I'm trying to figure out like who doesn't know I'm doing a podcast right now. Anyway, I will answer that question later. My brother's asking about somebody, and that somebody happens to be somebody I was involved with. He's like, "Hey, who is this person?" And it's like, well, I'm not going to answer that for you right now.
Speaking of brothers, yesterday was my brother's birthday.
Oh,
and you can probably relate to this. Is just, or maybe not, Facebook. Okay, I know it's my fucking brother's birthday,
right?
So why are you tagging me in his birthday congratulations? It's his birthday, not mine. I know it's his birthday because I woke up that morning and I texted him on his phone like an adult. I was gonna call him, but I was doing stuff. And it's like, happy birthday. And I left it alone. I stepped away from it, but I got like 30,000 freaking notifications notifying me that somebody else tagged him and wished him happy birthday and tagged me as well. I was like, it's not my birthday.
Oh, yeah, I don't care. I told him happy birthday. Yeah, no, I get that. But yeah, no, I don't know. What I was saying about Raw, though, is just that, like, I hate it because of the fact that, you know me, I am so much about knowing my wrestling history and having my wrestling history.
Yeah.
And I actually hate the fact that I don't know what's going on.
Stuff from the source, man.
Yeah. Or like who's involved in what, or like, or that I even have questions. Like the fact that I've always been the guy to answer those questions. And the fact that when somebody comes to me and is like, what's Cedric Alexander up to? And I'm like, I don't know. Main event? I don't fucking know. Is he actually on Raw? I don't know. So I don't know. I haven't. And then like I watched SmackDown, and the parts of SmackDown I do enjoy, but the parts I don't, I still don't. And so I'm still like grappling with that. It's pro wrestling.
See what you did there.
But the thing that I do enjoy ultimately about AEW as a live experience that I'm going to have here tomorrow as I attend All Out is that they do put on as good of a live show as WWE does. And I tell everybody that if your only live experience is attending WWE shows, you're in luck because it's not all that different. And I recognize that comes from the fact that they took a lot of key WWE people.
Yeah.
That like, Jess Palumbo was WWE's video producer. She did the Eddie Guerrero tribute videos. Actually, she was a long-time video editor. She was there from like 2004 till I want to say, I know she was there for a Saudi show. So she was with WWE pretty much until like the launch of AEW. Like she was able to, or they were able to grab like one of the most senior producer people. So she's like been good about making sure that the show is produced similarly to what she's had an experience doing. But then also Raphael Morphy, he was the event coordinator for WWE for years, and now he's AEW's event coordinator. So like they made sure that they got enough key people who knew how to put together the live shows to make sure that it's a very similar experience.
See, now when you're calling out the names and the positions and company and what they do and whatnot, that goes back to an adage that I had on my show. I was like, I used to say I love wrestling, but I thoroughly enjoy it. People like you love wrestling, because I couldn't pull none of them names out of the hat. I couldn't tell you who's the guy behind the curtain, even moving the curtain when the people walk through, nothing. I couldn't tell you anything about it. You know, I can barely pull up the encyclopedic knowledge that you have on the subject or whatever. Like, what's your favorite match? And I got to sit there and really be like, where you can be like, oh, this one.
Yes.
I can barely remember a match until you start talking about it. When you start talking about it, that's when it starts to come back to me. Like, oh, all right, I remember this now.
Well, a big piece of that is the fact that, for a living, I'm a developer. I'm a software developer, and a big part of that is the fact that I live off of deconstructing things, and that's really like how my brain works. I can't just like take something at face value. I have to know what went into making that thing. And so I'm one of those people who, like, when people say, oh, I don't want to know how the sausage is made. No, I'm one of the people who does want to know how the sausage is made.
Because I don't know who to blame.
Yes. So with wrestling, I love the behind the scenes aspect of things. I love knowing who's produced matches. I love, because I want to know like the thought process behind this spot or this spot. And so like when I went to All Out last year, I sat behind Justin Roberts. Like my seat was literally right behind where he sits. And one thing that he had, and I quickly snapped a picture of, was the run sheet for the show, which didn't have the results, but it had all of the producers of every single match.
Okay.
And so I'm watching all these matches live, knowing who was behind them because I caught Justin Roberts' run sheet. And so, I'm watching, what was it? Riho versus Hikaru Shida was at that show. And I see producer Kenny Omega. And so like, I knew that was the first time I was aware that Kenny Omega was behind some of the women's matches. And now I know it's really expanded because Sanjay Dutt is there now, and Dustin Rhodes also produces women's matches. But at least for that particular one, that was a Kenny production. So it was like, but I knew that watching it live, I'm like, okay, I know who's behind this.
It's like some of those things I like to know in hindsight or whatever. It's just like I really enjoyed the match, and just later it would come up in a conversation like such. And I'd be like, oh, well, that was pretty cool. But it's like I would never really actively sought those things out a lot of times.
Yeah,
I used to be like that with movies, because that's how I always bring up the interesting tidbit of like for the Blade franchise. I love those movies.
Mm-hmm.
We almost had LL Cool J playing Blade.
Yeah.
So I was just like, what the hell would that have been like? You've been licking his blood off his lip every 5 minutes.
Just looking and going,
yeah.
But his blood, that would have been great. My brother David, the actor, he auditioned for the Blade TV series that ended up
Sticky Fingers.
Sticky Fingers ended up getting. Yeah,
I refuse to watch it. I love Blade, but I refuse to watch that shit.
Carrie in the chat is saying that WWE doesn't want fans to know their history. Yeah, I know, right? I acknowledged that from SmackDown last night, because we can talk a little bit about SmackDown. Because one thing SmackDown did was, and I feel like this was one of those things where history would have been better. But they talked about how Finn Balor was the first Universal Champion. That was pretty much the build all show long, right? As they're building to Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor. And they're talking about
the demon paint.
Yeah, and they were talking about how he was the first Universal Champion, and that this is his chance at redemption. But they completely want you to forget that he's had 2 other Universal title shots since then, and one of them against Roman Reigns. And like this already happened. All of this already happened, but they wanted you to forget it. And I know I keep saying it on the show. They want you to forget it because they're going to repeat the same result, and they don't want you to remember that we did this before. But they absolutely did this before.
Well, technically they didn't, because Finn has never faced the tribal chief.
Yes, never faced the tribal chief, but he did face Roman Reigns as Universal Champion. He challenged him. They played up the story of you were the first Universal Champion. You lost. You never got your chance back at the title, and now Roman's giving him a shot. They did all that, and Roman won. And we've been here. And then Finn got his shot against Brock Lesnar after following Royal Rumble, and so we've been there. If anything, the story I would have told if I were writing a professional wrestling show is that Finn has not been able to conquer that mountain in his quest to get back to the Universal title, and he's in it, and his mission is to prove that it wasn't a fluke. Like that would be the story I'd be trying to tell. And but of course, the problem with that is that the happy ending to that has to be that he eventually wins it. And if the goal isn't to give him that, then I could absolutely see why they haven't continually told that story.
And then even with if they acknowledge NXT or whatever. I mean, they could even brought that back. He went down to rehone his craft and get better to come back here and get the thing back, but we know how that go.
I will say I was happier with the formatting of SmackDown because I've been begging. I mean, I don't even have to beg because I get it out of AEW, but I have wanted to see a WWE show start with a match for a while. And so they just don't. They just come out. It's just guys who come out and they're like, welcome to Monday Night Raw. And so the fact that the show kicked off with the Usos and the bell rings and they're like, the following contest, I'm like, oh my God, we're starting with a match. But then they grabbed the mic and I'm like, you couldn't resist. And so the Usos got on the mic and they talked about basically everything happening in the realm of the what was it? Well, what are they called? The Bloodline. They didn't use "Welcome to the Usos Penitentiary," and I thought that was weird.
Well, because one of them could have likely been in jail right now. But
yes, I noticed they dropped that line, and I wondered if that was the case.
And have you noticed the trope with them as well? They get in trouble, then they win the titles right after.
No, I haven't noticed that. But
anytime this has happened twice already. He got the DWI or the drunken thing last time. They won the titles right after. This shit happened this time. Won the title right after.
I did. All right. For those watching via video, just so you can see, I recently got a haircut, and I've spent the majority of the beginning of this show. Yeah, that's a pretty good looking cut, isn't it? Anyway, spent the majority of this show with a hair stuck in my teeth, and I have been trying to get it out for the last 5 minutes.
That was from the couch action.
And somehow, hey, that was before the show. that was for not this side of things. But anyway, it was a I got that out, so I'm happy. Anyway, so the Usos faced the Street Profits. Again, I was on one hand happy to see a match. On the other hand, God, WWE in these rematches, man,
just can't let it go. Yeah,
it just there's got to be fresher matches, even if you did like a one-on-one thing of just like Jey Uso versus Montez Ford or something. Just something different. But we went here again, and it ended in a disqualification. So I'm like, you're definitely setting us up to see this again. So we had that. And what else remarkable happened on the show? There was nothing really to talk about with Rick Boogs versus Dolph Ziggler. We did see Seth Rollins versus Cesaro,
where Seth was breaking out the Edge moves.
Yeah, Seth said that he needed to challenge Edge to beat Edge, and he was doing pretty much all the Edge stuff. And he was hitting the
Edge-O-Matic.
He hit the Edge-O-Matic and
the DDT does the Impaler DDT or whatever.
What is that? The Execution.
Execution.
Yeah, he hit the Execution, and he hit him with the little crossface with the pipe that Edge had been doing.
And then he attempted the concerto.
Yeah, he was about to attempt the concerto until until Edge made his way in, and then they announced next week live from Madison Square Garden, we're going to see Edge go one-on-one with Seth Rollins one more time, Edge versus Rollins 2. And
when he made that statement about he has to be better than Edge or something, or be like Edge or whatever, I forget what his wording was. I was waiting for him to just start doing the spear, which we haven't seen yet, and I'm waiting.
I'm sure he'll hit that in the Madison Square Garden match. So we have that coming up. So Madison Square Garden, it's looking like it's going to be a huge show. And because then they also, Roman Reigns was approached by Paul Heyman, because they throughout the show they were doing Paul Heyman on the phone with somebody, and Kayla trying to get the scoop. I love all of the Kayla Paul Heyman interactions; those are always good. And Paul Heyman approaches Roman Reigns backstage, and he's like, "We have a problem," and Roman's like, "No, you have a problem." And he's like, "Well, Lesnar's going to be in Madison Square Garden next week for SmackDown." And So we get that confrontation happening.
I mean,
and
are we going to get the turn that everybody think we getting, or is just going to be something totally different? I mean, granted, you know what company we talking about.
I mean, I think ultimately Brock is obviously functioning as a face. The question is, do you split Heyman from him, or do you keep Heyman kind of neutral? I don't know what you do.
No. I believe it'd be an interesting wrinkle if he just stayed neutral and it's just like he's just torn between the two, where it comes to situations to where like he could screw Brock over, but he don't do it. He's just like, no, I can't,
And yeah, well, what else did we see? We saw the Kevin Owens show with Logan Paul.
Oh god, I seen still images of this and I was just like, I'm glad I didn't watch it.
Yep. Although there seems to be a group chat going right now. I'm gonna break the air right now and let's see, because I bet you it's a work group chat. That's what my phone's been vibrating from this whole time, and I'm curious because it sounds like they need me. Although my phone won't unlock. This is being weird. Let's see. There we go.
I'm sorry about your damn look.
You have his phone number, and let's see. Oh, yep. Hey, Will, are you around? Need you for 5 minutes. Let's see. I'm here. Give me about.
Yeah, why you shenanigan with that? Looking at the chat, they're bringing up this will be the first time the tribal chief has faced the demon and everything, and he could be only the second Samoan to beat the demon.
Yes.
Because they did tease it last night to where it's like the little heartbeat joint went off or some shit like that when Finn was laying out in the ring. So they teasing the demon may be coming back.
Yeah. So they did that. Yeah, so that's the thing we'll talk about. Because I mean, I'm just not into the Logan Paul stuff. I pretty much just
no.
Also,
my time.
I'm still continually not into Dominic Mysterio. Maybe I overhate him. I don't know. I don't even actively dislike him. I think it's just that, he is continually put over for being a young guy in the business.
Yeah.
But there are multiple guys around his age that are way further along. He's only a year younger than MJF. This isn't
shit. Was it Martin Dominique?
Yeah, or Dante Martin. Dante Martin.
Yeah.
Younger than Dominic. And so and also he's the same age as Jungle Boy. This isn't a dude where I'm okay, I'm impressed with okay, he's fine for his age. I'm no, he's 24. That's okay, here's how I can put this for more WWE relation. He is exactly, and I did it, I already calculated this to the month. He is exactly the same age Randy Orton was when he won the World Heavyweight title.
Ooh, shit.
This is.
But I feel like he started late, despite being Rey Mysterio.
He started late, but also that's Rey Mysterio. So how late can you start? I don't know. I'm not all that impressed with Dominic.
I'm feeling like he's taking a tiara as soon as he get popped out the wound and shit. Just
yeah. So I don't know. I'm not quite there with him. But
do you think he would benefit being brought down into this new restructured NXT light bright colors?
I think he would, especially for what NXT is going to be. Yeah, we finally got a glimpse of what the set's going to look like. I think it looks cool. It looks like they're going to expand for more fans, and the stage is smaller, but it's brighter.
They're like Double Dare and shit.
Yeah. We'll see what that ends up looking like. Main event, though, was Finn Balor versus Roman Reigns. This was cool. This was a lot of the same match we've seen between these two, but just with more Roman doing the tribal chief stuff. I want to say the coup de grace at the end that led to that 2 count was one of the best.
He stuck that.
Yeah, that was one of the best 2 counts I've ever seen. Only thing I didn't like about that was everything after. I thought everything after that was trash. I liked that it was such a Roman sold that coup de grace like he was dead. And then they do the 2.9999999 kick out. But then it was almost like somebody told them, okay, we've got 30 seconds.
Oh, shit.
And Roman like is like, oh, okay, I'm done selling that now, and like he just kind of gets like right up and is like perfectly fine to hit the guillotine, but like is showing no effects from that coup de grace. So that was the thing I wasn't a big fan of. But like even like stumbling just a little bit, he was just like good after that kick out.
Go back to Dominic Mysterio real quick. Carrie is like Dominic looked like the type of kid that would forget his straw.
He forgot his straw. Yeah. And yeah, they're I don't know. I thought that that was just a really good kick out. And yeah, they teased as Roman was heading up the stage, they teased the Demon because apparently the Brock match isn't happening till Saudi Arabia, which is in October. Yeah. But we still have Extreme Rules.
Oh,
so, therefore, Roman versus Finn seems to still be the program coming up.
So this questions I have for you or whatever. I mean, yes. I enjoy your mind for the business and how you talk about wrestling and whatnot. Hence why I've been listening to RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk for years now. When it comes to fans in WWE, and I know you a budding fan with AEW, do we focus more on the behind the scenes and the freaking business aspects of WWE rather than the wrestling? One, because that's all that's really presented to us or whatever, but it's just like whenever we as fans talk about WWE, we're never talking about the wrestling. We always talking about what's happening backstage, who getting cut, who if they selling, if they daggone, we always talking about their business moves rather than their wrestling moves,
I think a big part of that is also the show they put on. Yeah. And I say that from the perspective that, like, when you think about Vince McMahon, the character, I think a big piece of why people got interested so much in the behind the scenes aspect is that the show kind of, I won't say directly, but almost like indirectly,
it just like spills over. Yeah.
Well, they lifted the curtain a little bit by like bringing Vince on screen. And I think that opened the door to Vince was always on screen, but I would say from Survivor Series 97 on, from the time he became like the Mr. McMahon character, and they did the Brett screwed Brett stuff, and they wanted to like kind of lift the curtain a little bit. I feel like as the show kind of progressed into like bringing in the on-screen characters that are authority figures and things like that, and we see like the show as it's getting made, I think that kind of gives people a want and desire into seeing the show made that way. And seeing the show from that perspective. Whereas, again, AEW is a show that really just focuses so much on matches. Yeah. Like Tony Khan is never really on screen anyway. And so I think there's a lot more investment from fans in what people are watching versus in what's happening in the show itself. So I think it is just a couple of different philosophies. On the AEW side of things, talking about Rampage, did you watch Rampage?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I love an hour-long wrestling show. I think that it is amazing how much they decide to get done in an hour. And
they even managed to squeeze in recaps in there and little packages and whatnot.
Yeah. And I would call this show mostly an hour and a half because they also had the half-hour countdown to All Out after the show was over. We saw that special, and I always love those countdown specials. But we saw in this particular show, it kicked off with Malachi Black versus Big Shotty Lee Johnson, and this match was mostly Malachi toying with Lee Johnson. But at the same time, this was kind of the second time Lee Johnson's been in this situation on TV where he got to have a little bit of shine against somebody who's otherwise kind of seen as indestructible in AEW. Because the last time he had the TNT title match with Miro. And this
these nuts.
Yes. Yeah, so we had we saw Malachi So he did get a good hope spot. Shoddy
Mhm.
Lee, big Shoddy Lee Johnson, is really good at the hope spot. Like he had a really good comeback, and he had that tope that almost looked,
Yeah.
that almost looked like he did more damage to himself. But then Malachi ended up taking him down, and then grabbing the chair and
That was a
telling
nice
Lee hit him with it. And as the referee is screaming and warning, referee Rick Knox is saying, don't do it, don't do it. And he puts the chair down and tells Lee Johnson, hit me, turns his back to him. And before Lee can even decide, then hits him with the black mass kick. 1, 2, 3.
That was wow. He's just like, you ain't about that life. Let me end this.
And then out comes Dust, and Dustin makes the challenge for next week's Dynamite. So we are going to see in Cincinnati.
And I like that. And he essentially went through the Nightmare family to get to the big boss, which is Cody. And then he's going to come down on his white chariot and everything and slay the darkness.
Yeah, this is the second year in a row, though, that Cody's missed All Out. I thought, like, maybe there's a chance that Cody, like, makes the save here and then we get the match for All Out. But no, 2 years in a row, which it's because Go Big Show films at this time period.
Mhm.
It's going to be weird, though, if every single year Cody gets written out right before All Out. And then, because I don't know if they were planning that this time around. Because if you remember, the original promos for All Out had Cody in them. Like, he was talking in them. It's Cody, and he's like, we're coming back to the city of Chicago where it all started. And I just watched that promo yesterday. But yeah, if they continually every year have to find a way to write Cody out right before All Out,
and it seems like they always have to find a way to write out Pac too.
Yeah, well, so Pac was like a different case of, he was supposed to be here for All Out, and I guess like some were suspecting COVID, but the fact that he's going to be there next Friday tells me it wasn't. I think it really was. I think Khan's being truthful here. I think it really was a travel issue. That just made it so.
Be the thing with him, though. I think he had problems even before the COVID shit was going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, he lives in the UK, so like the thing is,
he was living in the UK when he was with WWE, wasn't he? And he didn't have no problems then, right?
I mean, I don't know. I think it is a case of because I think his only travel issues, when you think about it, were really all pandemic. Because if there's any times that Pac hasn't been there, it's always been it's
when
really
they needed him
last year, but it's always like he's stuck in the UK, and I'm sure the fact that he's able to work next Friday tells me, and actually that show's being taped Wednesday, so really he's working next Wednesday, so it's literally.
What do you think it's a commitment issue is or whatever? Because you see a lot of the people that come from overseas and everything, making one-way trips to America and getting their visas and their green cards and all kind of stuff. I mean, what's Pac's hang up?
Well, so that is interesting because I remember there was a story that he was like home buying right before the pandemic, that he was trying to buy a house here in the States. And then he was going to move his whole family out here. And then he ended up not being able to once the pandemic hit, and that like slowed things down. So he's like the only guy who has to travel back and forth. Like when you think about Jamie Hayter, who just moved out here, and Riho just moved to the States, and Emi Sakura just moved to the States. And so like a lot of them are like making the full on move, but Pac is the only one who's like having to jump overseas, because even like guys like Ethan Page lives in Canada, but Ethan Page at least is able to travel across the border to make his way to the States. And same with Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, they both live in Canada as well. But
I think they had that issue like earlier on in their AEW stuff with their travel.
Yeah, because we didn't see when Brody Lee first took over the Dark Order, we only saw like that first week that had the full Dark Order. And then that's the reason that they added all those other members, was because Evil Uno and the two originals were stuck in Canada, and they needed the group.
Did you like the putty freaking joints for the Dark Order in the beginning? Did you?
No. I thought that was honestly.
I thought the throne thing was cool.
I thought that the original Dark Order wasn't really
dark enough,
wasn't really clicking for me, and I found like some of my old tweets about it, and it is amazing that I was reading some of the reports about Dark from last night in the Dark tapings, and they did a match between Alan Angels number 5 and Evil Uno, and the fans were like upset about there being dissension in the Dark Order, and I just thought, God, 2 years. What a difference 2 years makes, and that everybody wanted this group dead. Everybody wanted it gone 2 years ago, and now people don't want infighting in the Dark Order. And
I think they even playing up to it on BTE, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and because Alan Angels, like, he left BTE months ago before the Dark Order was even kicked off of BTE.
Yeah, because he do the Sammy vlog.
Yeah, because he does the Sammy vlog, and so he left BTE. He didn't want to be a part of all of that, and so yeah, they have been teasing dissension in the group. Speaking of Dark, though, spoilers for those who haven't watched. I mean, who don't like Dark spoiled. Who doesn't like Dark spoiled? Who gives a shit?
Yeah,
You know the results.
alert.
You know the results of these matches. You know the results of these matches. But there's some cool moments because, of course, the story came out that on Monday's Elevation, we see the return of Max Caster, and then on Tuesday's Dark, he apparently, I caught a clip of it, but he apparently cuts a rap that he comes out with like a written piece of paper, and he's like, I now have to read pre-prepared raps, and the crowd boos, and like he starts to do it and then rips it up, and then his music kicks in and he just goes back to the normal freestyle. So like everything's back to normal with
great. I like that.
But he at least played up the fact that like the fans know what's going on, and he did tease it a little bit, but he's basically back in full force. He even refollowed Anthony Bowens on Twitter because like he had refollowed everybody except Bowens, and I was almost convinced that like they're not going to put them back together, but like everything's back to normal.
They should. Do you think Bowens needs him though?
Yeah. I mean, I love Bowens, and I think ultimately Bowens is going to because like they never really like knew each other prior to AEW. Like the Acclaimed is a Tony Khan production. Like Tony Khan created the Acclaimed. Chris Jericho said that was actually the original name of the Inner Circle was the Acclaimed, and that Tony Khan had just been sitting on that trademark and was like, what do I do with it? I just signed Anthony Bowens and Max Caster, so they're now the Acclaimed.
Yeah. Bowens reminds me of a way better David Otunga.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good comparison. I never even thought of that, but now I can't unsee it. That shit. I like that. I really like it.
You're welcome. I'll let you have that for free.
Yeah. But then we had Miro coming out to cut his promo. And this was really good. Somebody on Twitter, and I forgot who said it, but they mentioned how we have never seen in pro wrestling like a real religious ideology based feud. And like that's not really the basis of this feud, but I like that it was kind of the basis of this promo where Miro was talking about what God has in store for Eddie Kingston. And, you know, all his normal stuff because he's God's favorite champion. And Eddie Kingston basically came out and he was like, I don't believe in your God. And he even turned to the crowd and he was like, yeah, I said it.
Yeah, I said it.
And it was, I thought this was really good. Like everything about this was good. And he said, but, you know, if your God was real, your God put me here to beat you. And he keeps pointing out his weaknesses that getting dropped on his head seems to be the biggest weakness. Burnus in the chat brings up HBK and Vince. Okay, you know what I mean by the religious ideology, because like that was more of Vince basically just saying he's got God on his side. But I mean like really between like two different belief sets.
Yeah. Undertaker and Mordecai.
Yeah. That never happened though, but we could have
yeah.
Two different sets of beliefs, and that kind of being the driving force behind two guys like really going at it, because that's a real thing that would really happen. And you know, a lot of people were like up in arms about I saw a lot of people on Twitter that were talking about I didn't know Eddie Kingston was an atheist. Like he's not. Like as a matter of fact, he kissed his cross before he got in the ring. Like
he wears like 2-3 of them.
Yeah, and like dude's like his entire basis of his character is DMX, who like do you know religiously who DMX was? And it's more so
it's almost like it's a false god type.
Yeah,
thing. It's more not my god. You know?
It's more philosophy versus outright non-belief.
It's not the god. It's a
yeah. And so but yeah, this led to them brawling, and Eddie Kingston hitting him with the DDT and them playing up the fact that is Miro's weakness is the DDT.
Because of Fuego.
Yes, because of Fuego. So now he knows what his weakness is getting dropped on his head. And so this was cool. And it trended last night. But when he said redeem these nuts, and the crowd loved it, and everybody loved it. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to point out was, and sorry, Carrie, in the chat, I'm talking about crowds for a sec, but this is the third time, I said this on Twitter, but this is now the third time that an episode of Rampage outsold the episode of Dynamite from the previous week. And it is interesting because, like, obviously less people watch Rampage, but I think Rampage is positioned better as a show to, because it's on Friday nights, and like, you know, going out is the thing people do on Friday nights. And so I feel like it is positioned better as a show to just to be out and do stuff on. Because in Pittsburgh, just for the first week, it outsold Dynamite. And I think there's also a sense of FOMO. I think that when Dynamite airs and people see other people having fun, and then it's like, oh, well, shit, they're coming here Friday, I should go. And
the thing with the timing of Rampage or whatever is, like, if you're of the variety that has kids and stuff, I mean, you do go out on the Friday night, but you typically come back in earlier. And by the time you get home, Rampage getting ready to start up. And I'm like, oh, shit, turn it on, baby.
And so I think it was interesting that this was a better crowd, and it was more full than the crowd from, and it was the same arena, but the crowd from Dynamite this past week. It's like Dynamite is obviously the bigger show, but I think that Rampage is drawing better in terms of bringing people in. Now, of course, the next almost 6 weeks are all pre-taped, so that's not going to be the case. We're not going to have another live Rampage until, I want to say, October 15th, I think, is the next live one. So it's taped for a good while now.
Somebody congratulated you on finding your cap on YouTube.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you. I'll bring that up on the screen. There we go. Oh, Will found his cap. Thank you. Daliono?
I'm glad you said it, because I have a problem with names, both foreign and domestic.
Please tell me how that's pronounced. But yeah, thank you. And yeah, if you do comment on YouTube, I can actually bring those up on screen. If you're commenting in Mixlr, I just have to read it. If you're commenting anywhere else, but I can bring that up on screen from YouTube, and that's always fun. Anyway, so we and then we got CM Punk making his way out. He's loving that crowd dive. Oh wait, before that, because this was freaking great.
We saw that when you get back to it.
We saw the handicap match between Chris Statlander versus who was it? Jamie Hayter and Rebel. Sorry, I'm trying to do all this.
Me and my constituents over here at Wrestling This Trash, we have Dub Statlander. She is now Snacklander.
Ah, yes. I mean, hey, I think she, honestly, I said it last week and I still feel it. I don't, like, I would not make this a prediction because I don't think they'll do it. I don't fully believe that they would make Chris Statlander champ because they're so invested in Britt. But if they did, I wouldn't be shocked, just because I feel like Chris has it all right now. And she's in, like, physically, I feel like she is just in, she has just gotten herself so, I mean, Britt too, though. When you look at the first Britt and
she don't even look like the same person from when she debuted at All Out or All In.
And apparently I said it right on the name. So, but yeah, when you look at Chris Statlander and Britt Baker, just the amount of muscle mass they've both put on, of just like it's almost, I won't say like Cody levels, because like also Cody looks like Triple H now from like Cody is just massive. But like it is amazing how much these guys have been putting on. Like when you look at the first Chris Statlander and Britt Baker match, it looks like two different people compared to now. But I did point out on Twitter last night that this is going to be Chris Statlander's third title shot. That she challenged Riho back in Memphis in January of 2020. And then she also challenged Nyla Rose at Revolution in 2020. And so now here we have now she's getting to challenge Britt Baker. And why did Britt come out without the belt? Did you notice that when she was making her entrance, she didn't have the belt with her?
Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention, but yeah, that's a good.
As if somebody like found it, but she didn't have it in her entrance, and I thought that was odd. But yeah, now that she's challenging Britt Baker, it's like I don't want Chris Statlander to ultimately be like a bit of a loser in that sense, and that like she doesn't win her title shots. So at some point, like you do have to pull the trigger. I don't know when. Or
I mean, you would think that they were saving it for Thunder Rosa for a hot minute or whatever.
Yeah, but I don't know. I honestly don't know where we're going with this. Because also the Women's Battle Royal has now all of the field announced, which I thought was surprising because I think everybody was expecting Ruby Soho to be there. And now we actually do have all 21 participants announced because there was only 19 when we talked about it on RBR, but they've since announced Riho, and now they've announced Sky Blue. Yes, although, hold on, maybe I'm confused because actually, this says who is.
Because they got to do the Joker or whatever. That'd be 20.
Yeah. Well, now maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe there is only 20 still. Or somebody's out, but it looks like this is the whole field. So
I kind of felt like they were saving Ruby for New York.
Well, that's the thing is Ruby. I suppose that is 7 letters as well, because she put the destination and then 7 letters in her latest video, and I was thinking, well, Chicago is 7 letters, but New York's also 7. So I don't know. I think Ruby's still going to be in the Battle Royal. But yeah, I guess who truly knows. And then we have but yeah, they added Sky Blue, which ended up being a problem for this match. So Sky Blue is of course really popular in Chicago. She is Chicago sees her very strongly, and she was very over with the crowd in Chicago.
That was like the NWA show with Tootie Lane. I was like, whoa, who is this? I like this.
But the thing about Sky Blue was, so she faced Riho on what was it, on Elevation before Dynamite, and they booed Riho. They booed the hell out of Riho. Or it was after Dynamite, but they booed the hell out of Riho. And then on Dark before Rampage, she faced Red Velvet, and so they booed the hell out of Red Velvet for being against Sky Blue. The problem here is that hurt the run-in. So we had a really cool spot in this match where Statlander had Rebel on her shoulders, and then
the electric chair position.
Yeah, she had her in electric chair position. And hold on, Monica. Oh, I love Monica. She said in the chat, I don't believe Statlander will win, but I love that she won the handicap match in order to put it in our mind that she can. I fully agree with that. And yeah, so we saw the spot in this match where Jamie Hayter went for a crossbody while she had Rebel on her shoulders, and she catches her and then slams them both down, and it just great. The spot of her holding them looked really impressive, and then slamming them both and it just coming off so flawlessly looked good, and I enjoyed the hell out of that. And then
good pun,
have extraterrestrial strength, and yeah, and so then we see after the match is over, Britt makes her way in, and they were about to triple team Chris Statlander, and then Red Velvet makes the way.
Of course, that's where, all right, because I was kind of confused by that. I didn't know all the other stuff that you was talking about previous, and I was like, oh, why are they booing her? What did she do?
But it was because Red Velvet had just had a match earlier in the show where she faced Chicago favorite Sky Blue. So like it's already in their minds to hate Red Velvet. So she makes her way in, and they're like, we're continuing this reaction. But if you didn't know that, and I imagine most viewers didn't, it just looks like people hate Red Velvet. And I thought,
I was like, I immediately went to Twitter. I was like, what did she say? What did she say?
Yeah. And then in the main event, CM Punk made his way down. He did his crowd dive that he's becoming a big fan of.
Now that is like he just jumping in the crowd raw, man. It's just like
I know.
Fear, you know.
I know. It's like, we're still in a pandemic. Like that actually is makes me uneasy every time he does it. Like I'm just waiting for them to announce actually the match at All Out is off. CM Punk's got COVID.
Yeah, he already looks sickly in the face anyway. Naturally, it's just like, come on, dog. You're just like, you're gonna work through this and get everybody else sick.
Yeah. But yeah, so CM Punk, he had his so he comes out for commentary. The guy offering him the beer was the funniest.
Yeah.
Everything about that was just perfect. The guy
memed all that up real quick.
If Punk's reaction to it, like everything was just perfect. You can't write that any better. Burnus in the chat says his knees hitting the rails what made me uneasy. I agree with that too. I thought, oh God, he's gonna like tear it.
Then he had to jump in again.
Yeah. And
play it into the storyline. I hurt my knees on the guardrail. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hit the GTS.
Yeah. But yeah, so we did see Daniel Garcia versus Darby Allin. I thought this was another good showing for them. I like that it's never just like Darby beating the hell out of Allin, like Darby beating the hell out of Garcia. The last time we saw this match, it really was just Daniel Garcia kind of working over Darby and Darby eking out the victory. And that's what happened here too. But we saw Darby Allin hit a Pepsi twist, in which Punk was surprised, and they called it to make sure we knew that, hey, that's an old CM Punk move. And Darby ended up getting the victory until 2.0 makes their way in again. And that leads to CM Punk very slowly making the save. But why so slowly? And that was to back 2.0 into position for Darby to hit his signature dive, which looked amazing. And then that led to just a stare down to end the show of Punk and Darby. Looked great. Sold me. I'm happy. I'm ready.
You get to see that, man, live.
I'm going to get to see it live. You know what's interesting? You know what's really changed about AEW crowds? And you just see it visually.
There's more.
What now?
There's more in there.
But do you know why there's more? I mean, so
because they selling tickets for $2.
They weren't. They were never.
I know it was
that was scalpers. Which like the scalpers got hosed. Sorry, but more so, it's because it is the same. They're running a lot of the same venues, but what I think has changed, and I think it's just by the nature of AEW airing on TV for so long, is when it first started. The first AEW show I went to, and because I've now been to, again, I've been to 4 just this year. But the first 2 I went to one in 2019, and then I went to one in 2020. And both of those shows, the early ones, I could very much say that it was mostly dudes. And it was mostly a hardcore base of fans. Okay, but just by nature of being on TV, and you can see it in the rise in viewership and how just based on patterns, things are rising. But you can see that there are more children in the crowds, and there are more women in the crowds. And I think that is a big part of why there's more people in the crowds in general. And I think it has kind of shifted who the crowds are, because I think AEW isn't really just a hardcore base anymore. I think it is a lot of people who just watch the show and now they're in town. I'm going to come see it.
A lot of representation.
And I think that is also why a lot of things that maybe you would have anticipated were going to get a reaction because the hardcore base knows who somebody is, aren't necessarily getting the reactions that we thought anymore, because it is really just like a TV base of people who know the show based on what they're watching on TV. But there are a lot more women and a lot more children in the crowds than there were before. and so I am.
They all there for that Orange Cassidy.
They're there for Orange Cassidy, but like my I was watching with my wife and her best friend yesterday, and they were both just like when Lee Johnson came on screen, they're both like, "Oh my God, he is fun." And I was like, "Well, first off, that dude's like 23, and
secondly, he looked like he always got cheeks full of bubble gum and shit."
Yeah, I think he has braces.
Makes sense. He like 20.
I think that's what it is. But yeah, they were like, well, then he's gonna be cute when he's older.
Even because like, you know, I like wrestling, so my wife is privy to it or whatever. And I told her CM Punk came back. She's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "But for AEW," she's like, "What?"
Yeah, I know. It is such a different thing, and like, it still amazes me how much fun he's having and how happy he is with things. Because, like, I don't know, I wouldn't have thought that would be who CM Punk ever would be, but just the fact that
changes everybody.
Yeah, but he very much feels a lot more like 2005 CM Punk. But he even said on the Countdown special, because he was like, "What attracted you to AEW?" And he brought up like him being into punk rock when he was younger, and he was like, and seeing Green Day working in front of like 200 people one year, and then a year later they're performing in front of 1,000 people, and then a year after that they're like selling out stadiums. And he's like, and I've watched AEW make that same kind of progression of like these guys were in the indies working 200 people, but then AEW starts and they're now working a crowd of thousands, and now they're about to have a crowd of 10,000, and then they're going to work in New York and have 18,000, and it's like that is actually really cool.
I mean, so how has this been for you or whatever? Because I mean, we've known that you've been a long time WWE historian, but you've basically been here for the genesis of AEW. So now you're stacking that knowledge and that know-how of all the AEW stats.
That's the thing I do find that I do love about being with AEW or watching AEW from the ground floor, and that is the fact that I, WWE predates my existence. So like I have knowledge of all things WWE from at least the time I can remember watching, which like from about 6 years old on. I've got a really good memory for WWE stuff. But the fact is, stuff that happened before I was born, like I know it, but I don't know it because I didn't like live it. Whereas AEW, I could tell you probably the main event of every episode of Dynamite. I couldn't necessarily tell you every match without like really digging deep. But if a match occurs, I at least know that it took place before. Like as soon as a match happens, I'm like, oh, this is a first time match or this is a rematch. I know all of that. And yeah, it is nice to have like the entire history of the brand just like embedded in my brain. And the thing is, these aren't guys I was all that aware of because I wasn't really like all that into indie wrestling. So like, Maxwell was more so into indies more than I was, because like when we did our Decade End Awards at the end of 2019, he gave Tag Team of the Decade to the Young Bucks. I gave it to the Usos, but that was because I didn't know the Young Bucks work outside of TNA.
So how has the formation of AEW expanded your gaze as far as professional wrestling?
Well, so that's the other thing too, is I am also way more aware of indies than I've ever been, because like I have my indie knowledge because I'm related to Swerve. And so I always followed his career and anything he was doing and by proxy. But like I've told the story on the show of the time Swerve introduced me to Sami Callihan, and I didn't know I was Sami Callihan. And
he's a nice guy.
Yeah. And the thing is, Eric Brady was with me and had to tell me I was meeting Sami Callihan. And it was like one of those things where Swerve was like, "Oh, I want you to meet my cousin." And like, so we're shaking hands, and then Eric goes, "Oh, that was nice to Swerve to introduce us to Sami Callihan." I was like, "That was Sami Callihan?"
Damn it.
Like I had no idea who that was. Yeah. But so like I was like mostly aware of indies. I'm way more aware now because of a lot more because of AEW, because of the fact that I follow Dark, I follow Elevation. So when somebody comes in and I see Twitter buzzing about somebody, I'm like, oh, let me check out their work. And so that's definitely helped a lot. So
for me, it was 2014. For me, it was 2014 because I moved because I was in the military still. They sent me to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is in the armpit of bumfuck Egypt. So surprisingly enough, that is the mecca of professional wrestling. Harley Race's school is not too far from there. St. Louis and Springfield is like an hour each way, and they run independent shows all up and around through there. There was a local indie fed there that I got to work with while I was there. They actually trained me a little bit. So it's just like I was up to my freaking eyeballs in professional wrestling at that time. So I knew just about anything indie at that point. And then that's where it just kind of took off from there. And I was like, now anytime I hear about an independent show around here, because they got Booker T school out here, and then there's guys that broke off from Booker T's ROW and started their own promotion called New Texas Pro here. And I had them on the show a couple times. And anytime they run the show, I was like, please, can I help you do something? Please, can I help you? And I'm always showing up. So they got people like you need to be looking out for Mysterious Q.
Okay.
And the bounty hunter Brian Keith. You need to be looking for those two brothers there because they are making all the moves down here. Mysterious Q was just the longest reigning champ at 600 and some odd days, who was dethroned by Brian Keith, who just is a freaking wrestling machine. He's in Dallas. He's in Houston. He's doing 3 and 4 matches a day. And it's just, this dude is just awesome. I think he's number 19 on that Black Wrestler 500.
Yes, which put together by my dude Reg. I love Reg. And he's actually, by the way, so I know I'm going to kind of spoil some things, but Reg has been in the process. We've been working together on a theme song for this show because for the time being, I've been using the old RBR theme, but I really want this show to have its own theme song. And so I finished the instrumental about a week ago, and I sent it over to Reg, and he's going to lay down vocals for me. And so, but I love Reg, and he also writes for PWI altogether. And him putting together the Black PETA or Pro Wrestler 500 is just, it's always a great thing. And just the fact that it exists, the fact that he can come up with 500 wrestlers,
500 wrestlers,
and forget some. He forgot Anthony Bowens. And so that was the fact, though, that he's able to do that is always just super impressive.
I just, like, right before we got in the chat, I just finished talking with Phil, your former guest.
Yes, Phil Lindsay. And I love Phil as well. Who I'm hoping to see in Chicago. Phil lives in Chicago.
Yeah, he said he was waiting on you.
Yeah, we were just talking yesterday, and so I'm definitely gonna meet up with Phil. I you know what, I just love the wrestling community. I love this community. It's so great. I have I know there are people who are disenchanted with the wrestling community. You just got to be on the right sides of it, because I feel like I don't feel anything but like positivity out of the side of the wrestling community that I at least try to frequent. Like, I try to stay away from the trolls. I try to stay away from like the JD from New York side. I like all that shit. Like, I try to avoid all of those guys.
I think right now, as far as my wrestling lifespan goes, is probably about the pandemic barred. I think this is the best time for professional wrestling, in my opinion.
Yeah, honestly, I feel the same way. I'm just like, I have never had more fun with pro wrestling than I currently am. And I'm gonna keep doing it. And as a matter of fact, I don't have my watch on, but that was more symbolic because I gotta head to Chicago, folks. I am about to enjoy some of Chicago's everything. As I mentioned, Veda's favorite show is Raven's Home. It takes place in Chicago, so she like wants to see like the parts of so she's like talking about it as if she's like a Raven's Home character, and she's just like, yeah, we're headed to the Shy, and I'm like, okay. So 2 things before you head out. Yes.
We got Brian Keith confirmation in the chat on Mixler. So yes, we have a confirmation that he's the man. And on the topic of black professional wrestlers, I know you've been scanning, and I know you got a cousin that do the wrestling and everything, but this is an observation that I've made over the years, and I'm calling it our move.
All right.
So why is it that every black professional wrestler, male or female, has some variation or the flatliner in their moveset?
I think it's just because we look the best doing it.
Yeah, it's our move. I've dubbed it our move. It's our move.
Yeah.
Think about it. Brandy Rhodes. I'm just naming right off the top of my head. Swole, Swerve, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley,
R-Truth,
Cedric Alexander.
Yep.
Freaking who else? ACH, Leo Rush. This is just off the top of my head. Every black professional wrestler has this move in their arsenal, some variation of it.
Yeah, it's our move. I also like that. For as many times as the overdrive has been attempted as a move, only when black wrestlers do it has it looked good. Because it looked awful when Orton attempted it, right? When that was his finisher. I actually thought it was fine when MVP was doing it. I thought it looked clean with him, and now Red Velvet's doing it, and she also gets into it.
She got like a jump with it.
Yeah, she's got a little jump with it, and it looks better when she does it. Whereas
also we look better when we do the scissor kick.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. I love it. Yeah. Oh, and also I have a hunch because she's winning matches now that your girl Kiera Hogan might be. I have a feeling that her deal has definitely increased, whatever it is, because they brought her in. She lost to Sheeta initially, and then she lost to Jade Cargill. But she does have a victory coming up on they're putting her against the jobbers now. So she's not on the jobber side of things. She's in the battle royal. I have a feeling she's got some kind of deal in place, and I'm happy to see that.
For those who don't know, I have a personal bias with Kiera Hogan. I met her in person. She's been on my show, so it's just in them yams. So,
all right, folks. And then Monica in the chat, she said that I think Kiera is going to get signed IMO. I think if she hasn't already, she's pretty close. Or I could also see her being a really strong fixture in the
Elevation of Dark or something like that.
Yeah, and what the new Dark is going to be, when Dark moves to Universal Studios and they do the studio tapings. Which, speaking of which, hey, Tony Khan compared it to WCW Worldwide, which is fine, but if it doesn't have a rotating ring, it ain't WCW Worldwide. So I want my spinning ring, Tony Khan. You hear me?
This is just all the content for their inevitable streaming platform that's going to be coming soon.
Yeah. Or because honestly, I don't know if I want a strictly AEW streaming platform or if I want their content to get picked up by an HBO
somewhere. Yeah,
HBO Max or something. Because HBO Max did announce that next year they're planning on doing live content with the NHL and all of that. But the platform's not built for live content yet. But I wonder, because it is owned by Warner Media, it's also owned by which also owns Bleacher Report. And I feel like if I were
owned WCW at one time.
Yes. But I feel like if I were Warner Media and I wanted my biggest media platform to also contain streaming sports and streaming live content, I would go for HBO Max over Bleacher Report. But anyway, folks, I've got to head out, and I will see Chicago shortly. And I am very much looking forward to it. But in the meantime, it is now that time for me to say that is it for this edition of Wrestling with Weekends. Thanks for joining us for Rob of Random Ramblings with Rob. I'm William R. Washington. We'll see you next time, and have a great day. Peace.
I walks up in the club, and the ladies looking lovely. Tried to show some love, but they can't try to mug me. Walk up to the bar, and I tried to get my drink on. Step on my feet. If you wanna get banged on.
We're off.
Word.